never rests.
Counting careless in the sky. What a thrilling time to be alive.
Good evening, everybody. It is the Georgia Show. Jake Rowe, Rusty Mansell, Palmer Toms with you. And, the funny thing about tonight, guys, is we're here for a good time. We're not even here for a long time because all of a sudden we're looking at this, doing these shows and things, Rusty, and there's no injuries to talk about. There's no, we're running out of content now.
Why did you just jinx that?
Hey, man, I don't believe in that shit. I'm sorry. I don't believe in that stuff. Sorry.
Hey,
I don't believe in that. This ain't dark after dark.
Hey. All right.
I don't believe it. Okay, I got some wood right here. I knocked on it. Kirby says stuff like that. And he knocks on the wood.
Brian Bivens already got you. Just don't talk about Fight Club in Fight Club. You just don't talk about it. Man.
But hey, I was thinking about it. I was getting ready to try to put the show together. We cover the number one team in the country. They're going to play Tennessee, and I was like, what are we going to talk about? Obviously we could talk about the game and stuff like that. And listen, Georgia's dealt with it, man. And I think somebody had a good point. And this wasn't where I intended to start tonight, but somebody had a good point, and they were like, man, it was almost like everybody else is dealing with the injury stuff now that Georgia dealt with for the first 6 or 7 or 8 weeks of the season. And that's certainly what it feels like right now. Can
we get off the injury subject?
No, dude, we ain't gonna do nothing. I promise.
You're making me nervous. Oh boy,
you're not wrong about that.
Nothing irritates or harder to cover than an injury at Georgia and try to find out what's going on, Jake.
Big time.
So me and you don't want to even talk about it right now.
That's the main thing. That's the main thing. Okay, we'll get off of it. Let's start tonight with recruiting. We don't normally start with recruiting, but let's just go ahead because Jeremy Johnson and I did a video earlier today where we discussed the commitment of Nasir Johnson. And Rusty, you had a piece up over at DawgsHQ. I mean, from a numbers perspective, from a fits the scheme perspective, from he's a state of Georgia kid perspective, this is just so many good things happening at once for Georgia, and also flipping a guy from Florida.
I think this is also to show you that senior tape matters. You know what I mean? This guy played himself into this class. Georgia saw him last spring twice, had him on campus this summer. But, it happens. I mean, people start thinking, what happened? And this is a fallback. This is not really a fallback. This kid played himself on the board at Georgia. He wanted to go to Georgia. And kudos to other schools that recruited him. And at the end of the day, Georgia was like, Fran Brown, Trey Scott went down, I believe, the bye week, and watched him play. And, man, they've turned it up ever since seeing him in person early on. I tell you what, I think they went saw him the night before the Georgia-Florida game. So, this is a kid that's from South Georgia. I say Dublin, South Georgia for me. He's 6'4.5", 280 pounds, 285 pounds. He can turn a backflip. He does all that stuff. But we talk about it a lot, Jake, and there's only so many of these body types. And when you get a kid like this, that in this day and age, man, when you get a kid that wants to be at Georgia, that the state of Georgia means something to him, playing for the Georgia Bulldogs means something to him. He's a lifelong Georgia fan. Man, that goes a long way, not only in this decision today, when things get tough in Athens and he's getting challenged and he's sitting there, and it happens to every single freshman. I don't care who it is. When you start having doubts or you get pissed off because you're not a 5-star recruit anymore and Kirby Smart could care less what you're ranked, what is your passion? What is your why? And this kid knows that he's going to Georgia and he's going to have to work his tail off. But at the end of the day, that's where he wants to be.
And there's opportunity on this defensive line. Jake talked about it earlier today, but, Tramel Wildflower is gone. He's the only guy on this team that doesn't have any eligibility left. You had 3 guys that walked on senior day from the interior of this defensive line. So, with Zion Logue and Warren Brinson and Nazir Stackhouse, and look, there's a shot that Georgia gets 1 or 2 of them back. And, I would be willing to predict that they do get one of them back. Just because that there's an opportunity, if multiple guys leave, there's an opportunity for one of those guys to step up. But there's going to be a lot of opportunity for some of these youngsters, and that's why they are making defensive line such a priority in this class, because there is such an overhaul. And, you know, Jake, like you pointed out earlier, it goes back to last class and the fact that, you know, they lose Bear Alexander, they lose Sean Washington, guys that, you know, were a part of a class that wasn't all that big in the first place. And you lose those guys and, you know, those numbers start to dwindle.
No doubt about it. I got the mute button got me again. That's just becoming a thing. One of the things, a little story for Georgia fans out here that I haven't gotten to tell, but I've learned about since. So, you know, this year, Florida's opportunity to host recruits in Jacksonville for the game. Here comes Nasir Johnson walking in. He's got his Dublin stuff on, right? You see the colors, green, gold, white. He's wearing his Dublin stuff. He has a little entourage with him, with family members, mom and dad, grandparents, I think maybe. Everybody in his entourage decked out head to toe as guests to the Georgia-Florida game in Georgia gear. So they were all in their red and black, decked out in their Georgia gear when they showed up for that game. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Might have been a pretty good tell if anybody could have gotten eyes on it, because simple fact that we don't get to get down there on the field and see those things when, you know, for that game in particular, I thought was pretty interesting. But I mean, this guy checks off so many boxes. And like Rusty said, I mean, Jeremy pointed out earlier, Jeremy was like, man, I saw this kid versus Swainsboro earlier this year, and he was a big reason why they were able to win that game. I mean, he's just, and he plays both ways. He plays hard. You know, you watch that film and he lines up I'm not saying he's going to do this in Athens, but he lines up on the edge. He lines up at you know, in the middle. He lines up with 3 technique. He plays guard on offense. I mean, this is the kind of old school football player that Vince Dooley would have salivated over, you know, that he plays, you know, multiple positions, Bear Bryant and those guys. This guy he plays a lot of ball. And sometimes those guys pan out, sometimes they don't. But, you know, listen, 6'4", 300 pounds doesn't grow on trees. And I don't love player comps, but somebody brought up Tyler Clark earlier today, and I thought, that's actually kind of solid. You know, I mean, I think he might be a little bigger than Tyler Clark. I have a little bit bigger frame, but he's
bigger lower body than Tyler Clark. But yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So yeah, he's a good looking player, man. And you know, this, like you said, this is not a fallback option. This is a guy that once they saw that senior film, they wanted in on. And you love it when a guy like this is just getting better as his high school career goes on. Because Rusty, we see so many who put a great junior season on tape. Then they get senioritis.
Yep. Yeah. And it's the reason why Dublin's, you know, got a chance to play deep in the playoffs, you know, people like this. But, you know, I just really want to, I saw a couple of people, you know, saying, is this a fallback? This is not a fallback. Like, they recruited this kid hard. And once they got a better look at him a couple of times and got his mom on campus, I mean, this ain't like December the 12th. They were doing this in September. You know, they were doing this in late July, trying to make sure they stood in communication with this kid.
Absolutely. And the thing that we cannot discount one bit is the fact that he hails from the hometown of the finest sub shop in the land, Brian's Giant Subs, the official sub shop of the of DawgsHQ. So we got that in there too. All right. Hey, Palmer, let's do prize picks. Let's do our folks. Let's give our folks over the prize picks some love.
Prize picks. Let's get prize picks.
All right, listen. Prize picks. This is not fantasy football, guys. This is a skill-based opportunity for you to make a little bit of cash. Basically, what you do is you pick 2 or more of the parameters here. You've got certain players. You've got over/under yardages set. You pick who you want. You pick the over. You pick the under. Pick at least 2 and you roll with it. And you got a chance to make money. You can get, with the promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, you can get your initial deposit matched up to $100 when you start a Prize Picks account today. And we're going to make a couple for you real quick because they've got some of the Georgia ones up earlier than normal. And Palmer, are those our 3 right there? Or those are 4? Those one we looking at?
I've got 4 and was going to leave it up for discussion here if we wanted to you know, pull trigger on all 4, or I've already put in one of them. This feels like an auto pick right here. go more on 55.5 receiving yards for Brock Bowers.
Let's do it.
Talking to him this week and hearing from him, I'm not betting against that guy. He's a freak.
The one thing I will say, he doesn't always have the biggest games against Tennessee. I mean, Georgia's had 2 dominant wins against Tennessee since he's been there, but he hasn't always put up the biggest numbers.
So he's due.
He's due. Rusty, what do you think about that Carson Beck number at 287.5?
Oof.
We went under last week, and he made fools out of us.
Yeah, I still think Georgia wants to run the football because you want to keep that offense off the field. And, Tennessee's strength, I think, is their D-line, those big tackles. I'll go under that. I'll go under 287.
All right,
All right.
so less. Now you mentioned the run game.
I would go over 75 for Daisy.
Do we go more 75.5?
Yeah, I think Georgia's got to run the football, man. They've got to keep that crowd out of it and keep that offense off the field. There's no better way to do that than to run the football.
All right, so we'll just stick with those 3. We got more on 55.5 for Brock Bowers receiving yards. We got under on the 287.5 for Carson Beck passing yards, and then we've got over on the 75.5. Is that right, Palmer?
75.5. Yes, sir.
75.5 on Dejan Edwards. Listen, promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, for a deposit match up to $100. Open one account today. Check out Prize Picks. Make a little cash. Flash it around for the ladies. Flash it around for ladies if you want to play. Flash it around for the men. All right. Let's talk about this number 1 ranked team. Real quick, anybody surprised at Georgia moving up? I think every interview I did prior to the playoff thing, any radio stuff, I said I thought they were going to be number 1. It did not shock me at all. 2
teams that beat number 9 Ole Miss at home, and I think they drummed them. I think they beat them down, and they backed them off in the fourth quarter. Could have got worse. Missouri gave Georgia all they wanted basically for 4 quarters, and now they're number 10. So that's another good win for Georgia. Missouri beating Tennessee at home. So all that looks really good for Georgia. And, based off the last 2 weeks, I don't see how Georgia couldn't have been number 1. I don't think that surprised anyone.
Absolutely. And I think actually Missouri came in at number 9, didn't they? Isn't that right?
I thought it was 9. I thought they were 9. Oh, they were 9 and Ole Miss was 12, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you think about that, Georgia beat the number 9 team in the country without their best player.
Gotcha. Yeah.
They beat the number 9 team in the country without their best player, maybe best 2 pro prospects. So that's it's pretty. I don't know that the committee was in there talking about that, but Palmer, anything shock you about it?
Now the rankings now, I mean, I put out, especially as we were watching it and seeing, the way that those resumes were stacking up. And look, it's November 15th. It doesn't matter. Both these teams have, I say both, meaning talking about Ohio State and Georgia, the number 1 and number 2, but you can throw Michigan in there as well because they're a part of the big games, and Alabama's got a big game, and look, Oregon State has an opportunity here over the next couple of weeks, playing Washington this week and Oregon the next week. They've got a chance to ruffle up some feathers, and we'll see what that Pac-12 championship game looks like. There's a lot of football left to be played. And, at this point, I completely agree. Georgia, number 1, it felt like an automatic thing after seeing the way that they handled Ole Miss and the way that Missouri win just looks better and better because Missouri handled this Tennessee team. But all these teams, Georgia included, have to handle their business as the rest of the season plays out.
100%, man. And I still expect chaos to ensue. I mean, I think we're still
always does.
I still think we're looking at a situation, looking at I don't think this is the anomaly of the season. I don't know that one of those exists. It's just basically, is it chaos or is it a ton of chaos? And Rusty, we've already kind of gotten into talking to about this Tennessee game. You had a chance to kind of dive into it just a little bit there under that Prize Picks thing.
Hey, but before we transition to Tennessee completely, I do want to address this question in the chat here about if we think that Georgia would be able to get in with a loss to Alabama. I'm under the assumption of no.
Not right now. No. Not right now. Not unless things get crazy like we expect them to, and we'll see. They got to get crazy enough.
They get real crazy. That game is a playoff game.
Yeah.
And it has been a couple of times, but it is definitely a playoff game.
I mean, there's some chaos is going to have to ensue. But I tell you what, man, we went into conference championship weekend last year, and Ohio State was out. They were done.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, they were in. So it's one of those things. It's just
the difference to me this year is that all 5 conferences are very much a part of the playoff picture. And I think that's great for the last year of a 14 playoff.
Right now they are.
Interest. Yeah, you're right. Right now they are. Now, I mean, it would really shock me if we're going into conference championship Saturday and they're not all 5 still a part of it, because
if you're
ironically, Georgia fans are going to be Florida fans here in a couple of weeks trying to watch Florida State
and Oregon State. Oregon State in Florida. Like, you better be a Beaver and you better be a Gator.
Yeah, absolutely. Beavers and Gators, baby.
Gators.
That's exactly what I was thinking. And I mean, listen, we still got chaos that could ensue there in the Big 12. I mean, they got one team alive, and that is it. You know, if Texas finds a way to drop a game here in these last 2, you're looking at that too. So, and I don't see it happening, but I also didn't think that some of the teams that have played Texas as well as they have could do it. So as of right now, yes, that's absolutely a playoff game.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, it's going to stay that way. But I mean, still a lot can change, and that's kind of something. And that's why Georgia's got to go into Tennessee this weekend and win this and do what it can to win this ball game. This is not one of those, you can't, sauce step around and get yourself beat here. You've got to go in there and do it. And the one thing that I keep going back to, man, I don't know what Georgia can pull off that Missouri film, but Lord have mercy. That was just a it was they stood on business.
I went and watched it last night. Yeah, I watched it last night, man. Missouri, Tennessee had 2 costly turnovers. One, I think they fumbled on the 10-yard line
right before the half.
And one they fumbled on like the 20. You know what I mean? If they score any points right there, it's a different football game. They were forced plays. So kudos to Missouri.
Yeah.
Missouri caused turnovers. Georgia did that last year at home against Tennessee, had some turnovers and capitalized on those things. But boy, I tell you what, reading the pulse of Georgia fans going in this Tennessee game, it might be the cooler might need to be stocked this weekend, because this is going to be no damn joke. I can assure you right now. I was talking to Randy McMichael today, former Georgia Bulldog, and does radio 929 in Atlanta, and he said that by far he thought this was Georgia's toughest game. Like, this is Tennessee Super Bowl. They play outstanding at home. I mean, this will be the best crowd that Georgia plays in front of, and I mean, I'm saying the loudest. Jordan-Hare is an unbelievable stadium, but this has been marked on their calendar for 365 days after being ranked number 1. The way Georgia beat them last year, I mean, Georgia has got their freaking hands full this weekend in Knoxville. If it was in Athens, I feel like they're about to handle business again. But Georgia hasn't played great on the road. Now, let's just be honest.
No, they haven't. You're right.
Georgia has not played great on the road. They got all their pieces back. But I'm telling you, man, this right here, I'm going to be surprised if it's not a 4-quarter game. I'll be honest with you.
I was thinking about that earlier today, Rusty, whenever I was thinking about, how Georgia played at Auburn early this year. I also think Georgia might be a different team now.
Yeah.
I also think they might be a little bit of a different team, because they were, Georgia struggled at home during that stretch too, with Auburn, when they struggled with South Carolina. So, I don't know, man. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, because on one hand, you do see, you do know that this win makes Tennessee's season very successful for them. On the other hand, they've got no goals left in terms of what they can't win the East. They can't go to the SEC championship game. They've lost 3 ball games in the league. I'll tell you something else. Just out of curiosity, I scrolled through the old Marriott app earlier today.
Oh boy,
see what the hotels look like in Tennessee. A few of those places that were sold out about 2 months ago are not sold out anymore.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know if they're cutting hotels room loose at the last minute.
Probably are. Yeah.
Or if some folks gave them back. I don't know. I'm just interested to know. I'd love to know why.
I see Rhett Womack with a comment there. We need a strong start. I mean, that is the key. If Georgia gets off to a good start and put some points on them, that's the way to dictate that crowd. That's the way to dictate that game. But Georgia hasn't started out great on defense. They've given up drives. You know what I mean? Ole Miss was 14-14, and they shut them down to that. But give up 14 early to Tennessee, and you got your damn hands full up there because it's just going to be a different environment. Now, am I picking Tennessee to win? I'm not. I'm not picking Tennessee to win, but I can assure you this game right here is going to be a damn war in Knoxville. This is not going to be 36-7. That what you saw that Missouri game, and that running back got 300 total yards or whatever. He had 120 on Georgia.
By Schrader.
Georgia had their hands full with that dude. They couldn't tackle him either. Some turnovers. Georgia created some turnovers, and that was a really good job. So I think this one's going to be another big test. I will pick Georgia to win this game. So nobody take that different, but I can assure you, reading kind of the pulse of what I see, Georgia fans, they're expecting to just easily handle business, and that I would be shocked if that's the case. I'd be shocked.
I got to say, I would not. I would not. I think this Georgia team has got a little bit of a taste of its own blood early this year.
They've handled it in big games.
I mean, I expect it to be very competitive. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I really do, and I think probably going to be a little lower scoring than some of the previous games have been, because I think Tennessee's better defensively than they have been the past 2 years, and
especially up front.
Not going to shock me at all if Georgia kind of comes out and beats up on them a little bit, just because I do think Georgia's a different team now, and this is the healthiest, in terms of getting Bowers and Mims and Ladd on the field together. This is the best opportunity they will have had this year to do those things. Palmer, listen, you're a Tennessee guy. You bleed orange and white, basically, is what I've been told. What do you know about this game? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I don't bleed orange and white.
No, we see that diploma over your left shoulder.
Yeah,
buddy.
never have. No, I think it's interesting. It always interesting when Georgia goes to Neyland. I just checked it out because I thought I was correct in this thinking, and I was. Georgia has trailed early in the last 2 trips to Knoxville. And Jake, we were sitting there. I can't remember if it was 19 or 21, but you said to me, Tennessee makes a play here, and this place is about to explode. In 21, Georgia was down at the end of the first quarter, and in 2019, they trailed early in the second quarter because Tennessee scored a touchdown there. Back and forth. It wasn't like Tennessee jumped out and just ran away with it, and was jumped out to an early lead, but they were ahead. And so this crowd is going to be in it, and it's on Georgia to take them out of it. It's a benefit that Georgia had last year, in this game in Athens. It's a benefit that they've had the last 2 weeks in Athens, last week especially. But as they go on the road, and we say Georgia hasn't been good on the road. We've seen them really on the road once. Because I don't consider that. I take that Vanderbilt game with a grain of salt.
They didn't play good in Nashville.
I take it with a grain of salt, though, because you look at that game and it was just weird. I mean, everything about it was weird. There were guys in the game that don't normally play a ton of snaps. And, I think Georgia used it as a little bit of a tune-up before that bye week, get some film out there. Let's see what we've got in type deal. And what kind of adjustments can we make? What do we need to, force a little bit more during this bye week? I mean, Damon Wilson was out on the field for the first time, playing significant snaps on that Saturday. So it wasn't their best outing. I'd take that one with a little bit of a grain of salt, like I said, but the game at Auburn, this is just a very different Georgia team in general. I think, like Jake said, there's a lot more health here for this offense. I think that some of these guys on defense, have grown up, and, they've been put to the fire. I mean, Dalen Everett in that Auburn game got thrown into the fire a little bit, and he's, certainly had to face his challenges the last couple of weeks, and, going to continue to face him, especially as Julian Humphrey, is doubtful for Saturday. Not a ton that we got from Kirby this week on that injury, but, I don't think any of us are expecting seeing him out there anytime soon. And so, I think that this game on Saturday is going to be an interesting one. Always is, 2 teams, two fan bases that, have crossed paths plenty of times over the last couple of years, and there have been some entertaining games.
All right. Listen, we're going to chop some wood in a minute, but before we do that, we need to mention our partners over at Axia Time. Listen, if you're one of these people that you're looking for the perfect gift and you're looking for it right now and not on Christmas Eve like Rusty Mansell,
Hey, it's time to shop.
we've got a fantastic idea to you, because so many Georgia Bulldog fans, I'm sure they have almost everything. They don't have this yet, I can almost assure you. Axia Time has a perfect Georgia National Champions timepiece that you've got to check out. It is, listen, I've put my hands on it. I've held it. I've changed the bands out on them. I've done everything. These things are fantastic. They're extremely well made, heirloom quality, Swiss made mechanical watches, and they're available for men and women. The perfect way to celebrate the Bulldogs' historic back-to-back national championships and gunning for back-to-back-to-back. Check out these gorgeous timepieces at Axia, AXIA time.com. That's AXIA time.com, and use promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, at checkout for 10% off your purchase price. From what I understand, that means you can go in there and buy 3 of these watches and get 10% off, and then it becomes a real good deal, y'all. All right. If you're looking for something extra special, Axia Time has also partnered with the Classic City Collective to create a limited edition Kirby Smart autograph collection, with the majority of the proceeds going directly to supporting the Georgia student athletes. There's no better way to commemorate the Dogs' back-to-back national championships, maybe back-to-back-to-back, than with one of these amazing timepieces. Again, check them out. Axia Time, AXIA time.com, AxiaTime.com. Watches that tell you so much more
I like
than
it.
time. What was that, Rusty? You got something?
I like it.
You like it? Yeah, I like them too, man. They sent me that one to unbox. It's at an undisclosed location right now. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Yeah. I'm about to repo that thing.
We're going to have to see where that thing ends up. But, man, it's sweet, dude. Those things are incredible. I mean, they are truly heirloom quality, and I'm a big fan of them. With that said, let's chop some wood. And, Palmer, lead us off. I'm going to hand you the axe first. It's not even sharp yet.
Man, I need to sharpen it, I guess, because wasn't really prepared. But I'll talk about something that I saw thrown in the comments section earlier in the show, and I'll bring it back up. It was a funny interaction that we had yesterday. Yes, yesterday. God, the days are all running together here. But with Zion Logue, a volunteer state native, who was not really recruited by Tennessee. I asked him, because we had talked to Tate Ratledge. Obviously, he's, pretty well documented that he grew up big Tennessee fan, been adamant that Neyland is probably the best place in the SEC to play. He's excited about getting his first start there, was in line for one in 2021, but had that season come to a close early. But for Zion, I asked him, hey, you grew up in Tennessee. Did you grow up a Tennessee fan? And he was like, no, not really. Admitted that he was a big basketball guy at the time. And, was a big fan of the Kentucky Wildcats with John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins and company. But shared a pretty funny story about his Tennessee time, and said that he went up to Knoxville for a camp, spent about 8 hours there, and, didn't really get much of a look. And then, this was the Jeremy Pruitt era, Butch Jones era, the transition there, and said that, after the time in Knoxville, ended up coming down to Athens for a camp, worked out, all yada, 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 gets the offer. Well, as he's coming down 316, who calls? Jeremy Pruitt. Jeremy Pruitt calls him to offer him, and he said it didn't get much of a look from him. That didn't sit well, that he didn't get a ton of attention there, at least a look at his home state school. And so I think Zion, all that being said, I think Zion Logue is going to come out and with a chip on his shoulder this Saturday. Don't be surprised to see him. He probably knows some guys on that Tennessee team. I know he knows some guys on that Tennessee team. He mentioned a couple by name. Tyler Barron is somebody that he did a little bit of training with, both from the Nashville area. So he knows some guys on the opposite sideline. He'll probably know some people in the stands as he makes his way across state lines. And I got a feeling that Zion Logue is going to want to show out.
All right. I want to chop some wood on this Georgia offense. Okay. And the schedule all of a sudden looks a lot tougher now than it did at the beginning of the season. But you're looking at a team in Georgia that is, I believe, top 5, top 6 in the 2 major categories in yards per game, points per game, averaging over 40 points per game, averaging over 500 yards per game. And I went back earlier this week and I did a little video where I did where I talked about a play that I had seen Georgia run in 2023. It was, I believe it was the touchdown that Kendall Milton ran in, and I'd seen Georgia run it in 2021 under Todd Monken. It was the exact same play, formation and everything. James Cook ran it for him for a touchdown. Georgia used it to score a touchdown, threw a pass to Brock Bowers in the Orange Bowl. And folks, listen, I don't know how the rest of the season is going to go for Mike Bobo. It's game by game. Humility is a week away. Kirby Smart says it all the time. But the lack of ego, the ego check that it takes to just come in and say, all right, I'm going to run this offense. I'm going to run these plays. I'm going to do these things because it's best for the players, not because it's mine and I've got to put listen, man, egos are large. And you think paychecks have gotten large. The egos are massive in that business. And for Bobo to come in and take all of that to basically say, listen, this is what our guys are doing. This is what they've been recruited to. This is a system that they've been recruited to. This is what they know. And for him, I mean, you can go through, you can check it on other stuff. You see other plays like the mesh crossing routes with the curl route behind him, Georgia, Todd Monken. I still firmly believe there's a lot of Mike Bobo in this offense. There's no doubt in my mind. But I'm just impressed at this point in the year with this time with the offense that you're still seeing so much of what worked with Todd Monken. And you're saying, well, it worked, big deal. Hey, man, the ego. I mean, for a guy just to kind of come in and be like, listen, he may have put it together. I'm going to run it because it's what's best for us and it's what gets wins on the board. I think that says a lot about a guy. And obviously Mike Bobo has a lot of love for the University of Georgia and has done a fantastic job, I think, with Carson Beck. I mean, you've watched him get better and better as this year's gone on. Kudos to him. And, we'll see if he can keep it going because I think he took on a pretty impossible task to begin with. Brand new quarterback, lots of new offensive pieces, back-to-back national championships. He had he's got one thing he can do, Rusty, for it to be considered a big-time success. He's got to win a national championship for those on the outside to consider it. Pretty ballsy move to take that job in that situation.
Isn't that crazy that Mike Bobo might be the next one to have a first-round quarterback? Because Carson Beck at some point is going to have a chance at that.
Yeah.
The only time he ever started was under Mike Bobo's offense. That's kind of crazy.
Yep.
We'll chop wood on something a little different tonight, and those are on X, Twitter, whatever we are tonight. It's under the UGA Athletics, the official Georgia Bulldog account, and they tweeted something out tonight. I want to read this real quick. It says, last Saturday, as a part of our salute to service, we honored Blair Collette, daughter of Sergeant Joseph Collette, who died from wounds sustained in combat operations in 2019. I watched that video and I thought, man, that dude looks familiar. This talking there, and I pulled it up and it said Clay Ragsdale. And Clay Ragsdale is from the Georgia Survivor Outreach Services. I've known Clay Ragsdale since we were probably 16, 17 years old. He is from Cedartown, Georgia, which is south of Rome. I've known Clay a long time. I hadn't seen Clay in probably 20 years. Clay's did probably 4 or 5 different tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. I had a very detailed, probably too much information conversation. He was there the day Pat Tillman got killed. He was there in Afghanistan. And I had a conversation with him about it. But to see this dude and all he's done, I'll tell you this. I've known this guy. This guy is a huge Georgia Bulldog fan. And hadn't heard from Clay, hadn't seen him in years. Kind of thought he was still in military off. But University of Georgia used him to talk about Georgia Survivor Outreach Services, and what they do is take care of people's families who lose a member in the service. And don't have much camo, but I wore some tonight, and I wore that kind of honor those guys. And I don't know if Clay will even see this, but man, I am so damn proud of you, and what an honor, man, to be on the Georgia official Twitter account tonight. But outstanding what they do. And I know that young lady that got recognized on the field this weekend, that was a big deal. I didn't know what they were getting recognized for, so I'm glad Georgia put that back out. But hadn't seen Clay in 20 years, dude. And he pops up on Georgia's official. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But I just want to share that, and congratulations. I mean, Cedartown keeps putting out Bulldogs, man, with Nick Chubb and the guy that Tate Harris committed, and Clay Ragsdale, certainly a big time Georgia Bulldog fan and a documented veteran who's been through a lot to protect this country.
Good word, Rusty. Appreciate that, man. All right, folks. Well, the wood has been chopped. It along with the hay is in the barn. And we're ready to roll. We've got a pregame show coming up Saturday morning, 7 a.m. Make sure you tune in bright and early. Check that out. It will be available for you all the way up until forever. Watch it after the game if you want to. I don't care. And we'll have a post-game show, and then Georgia show will be back with you Monday, Wednesday like we normally are. Sunday, Wednesday. Maybe not Wednesday. It's holiday week next week, and there will be no Bark After Dark next Monday. We're going to try to enjoy the fams. I'm doing a little traveling myself. Palmer's got some traveling to do to get back to Nashville. I don't know what Rusty's up to. He may kayak down the river there in Rome if it's cool enough.
Let me tell you the most sobering thing I heard today, and Jake Rowe's going to laugh and not feel sorry for me 1 ounce. I am doing a 3-hour radio show next Wednesday from the Atlanta airport.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, dude, we got to get you in a Delta Sky Club.
Oh man, I feel
we got to get you some tequila sodas and lime.
I feel like planes, trains, and automobiles next week. Like, what in the hell have I got myself into? So,
oh, that's great.
Oh boy, so y'all pray.
I mean, I do feel for you, Rusty. I've got a heart, and I feel for anybody that's got to do anything productive 3 hours in that airport. That's why I go get sloshed in the Sky Club.
Busiest day of the year.
Yeah,
busiest day of the year. So
that's going to be wild, man.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, y'all make sure to tune into the channel. We've got it all for you. Come on over to DawgsHQ, 50% off a year-long subscription or membership, or $1 off of one for 1 month, $1 for 1 month. So y'all come check us out, and we'll be back with you
Sunday.
I guess, yeah, Sunday.
See y'all. Saturday morning, Saturday night.
After the game, we'll be back to you
Sunday.
sometime this weekend. Y'all take it easy.